Welcome. Hi, my name is Barb, and I send you a big welcome from Studio B. Last time we focused on acquiring a very stable, relaxing, yet alert sitting posture. Today, I want to talk about the concept of meditation practice. Meditation is a practice, which means that you need to establish a habit where you meditate on a daily basis. So I'd like to discuss with you habit acquisition, training yourself to set up a reasonable meditation practice on a daily basis. I'd like to start with a quote by Robert Brault. The quote is, "Often, what seems like an impossible climb is just a staircase without the steps drawn in." So it may seem like quite a formidable habit to acquire, finding time to meditate daily. But there are ways that involve wise effort and ways that are not wise and will not help you establish a habit. There's a beautiful building. It's called the Bullitt Center, and it's in Seattle, Washington, in the United States. A man entered the building looking for the elevator, but he couldn't find it. And there's a reason for that. The designing architect wanted people to use the stairs first. The entire building is beautiful, and there are 6 floors of steps built on the outer wall of the building that have spectacular views of Douglas firs. The staircase is called the Irresistible Staircase, as the best views are from the staircase, not from an office. The architect thought if stairs were appealing and prominent, people would use them. And the higher you go on the 6th floor, on the 6 floors of the Bullitt building, the more appealing and prominent the views were, especially both the nature part and very sweeping views of the city. As it turns out, 2/3 of the people going to the 6th floor use the stairs on a daily basis rather than the elevator. So think about it. Most elevators are situated in the front of a building and center. We don't even think of taking the stairs. So the architect who designed the Bullitt Center wanted people to develop new habits. The other positive thing about the Irresistible Staircase is that there's a place to congregate on each level, and it's nice. People run into each other and chat. Habits are really important because they shape who we are and they shape what we do. I can give many classes on meditation, but if it's not practiced, there will be no harvest to reap. So how can we use our habits to become the person that we really want to be? I think all of us know someone who gets a ton of things done, eats healthily, exercises regularly. How do people perform tasks that seem so difficult to attain? I'd like to share information from a book called Good Habits, Bad Habits. It's authored by Wendy Wood, PhD. She's a professor of psychology and business, at the University of Southern California. So what we know about people that accomplish a lot is that they are expert at building good habits. So what's the psychology behind our routines? Dr. Wood shared an example of her cousin who wanted to change her eating habits. She wanted to lose weight. So her cousin selected certain friends on Facebook, and she upped the stakes. She told them that she was trying to lose weight. She made it public, and she wanted to be accountable to her Facebook friends. She also was very careful to select friends who were going to be supportive. In our culture, we tend to think that the Nike slogan, "Just do it," is the way to create new habits. We believe if we exert enough willpower, it's going to happen. However, is all we have to do is to use willpower? Just do it? What the research consistently shows is that willpower is insufficient. Although our culture believes the way to self-control is through willpower, it pervades our culture. It doesn't work. One of the surveys about this, surveys of Americans about how to change behavior like obesity, 3/4 of the people felt that you could change just by using willpower. This is about how we control our desires. Let's say we want to stop smoking or over shopping or playing too many video games. Those kinds of habits are not a one-time change. They're a long-term change. And willpower doesn't work for long-term change. Setting up a meditation practice, the expectation is that it will be a long-term change. So, what is it that helps people persist in acquiring good habits like saving money or eating healthily? We can all do it one time, but not necessarily consistently. I know that I have made a number of decisions, lose weight, save money, avoid over shopping, and I did not follow through. I failed at it. So Dr. Wood reviewed the literature on habit forming, on decision making, to test whether decision making was important all the way through the process of acquiring a new habit. Not just at the beginning, but 2 months later, or 3 months later, or longer. So when you look at decision making, commitment is very important at the beginning. However, sticking to the decision and continuing it over time is different. Whatever actions you take or don't take begets more action. It's kind of like driving your car. You're paying attention and you do make decisions, but the actual responses do not take much decision with respect to driving. Conscious willpower is not the motivating force about making behavior change. There was an experiment done in Germany. The question was, do people who stick to resolutions do so because of willpower, or do they set their lives up so that they don't notice the temptations? And they observe that people with good self-control were not tempted, even though people who are high achievers we think of as having this incredible willpower. The people who stuck to their resolutions did not experience temptations. They reframed what they saw in their environment. So it was not the case of having cake in the refrigerator and then, strong arming or willing yourself not to eat it. If they saw a piece of cake in the refrigerator, they coded it differently. They reframed it. They said things like, that's my daughter's piece of cake. So the more you create a set of mental blinders or a reframing of the event, the more you can ignore temptations. And once this is in place, they start to have a life of their own. They become automatic and unconscious. So, how long does it take to develop a habit? Some habits take longer than others. A complex behavior will take longer to acquire. So let's look at a simple behavior. A simple behavior of adding a glass of water a day. It took 2 months to become automated so that the person didn't have to think about it. Fulfilling the commitment to go to a gym can take 3 or 4 months. It's kind of scary when you think about it, but a great deal of our lives is done on autopilot, not through conscious deliberation. The research shows that about 43% of our daily actions are habitual. They are done repeatedly in the same context, and they're not driven by decision making. So we're aware of doing it, kind of like driving, but we're not making continual conscious decisions. Some people say or believe, what about trying to change people's conscious thoughts? So let me share this piece of research with you. In the 1990s, there was a campaign in California in the United States for people to eat 5 fruits and vegetables a day. So how did people respond to this campaign? Before the campaign, 11% of the people were already eating 5 fruits and vegetables a day. 10 years later, it was the same. In fact, recent assessments indicate that it's declining even more. Why is that? The reason is that our eating is habitual. We eat automatically. We shop automatically. We often only go down certain aisles. Some people don't even go down the produce aisle. So people are eating based on the environment they're in and the patterns or habits that they have developed. It's a mistake to think that if you inform people, they will change their beliefs and then new behavior will follow. If you look at hundreds of Facebook posts, people are shouting out their own political point of view to the world, their own attitudes and beliefs, but it doesn't change other people. Research data does not support that behavior change occurs by trying to change conscious thoughts, especially with your information. It can be successful for a one-off thing like signing up for a campaign. But so many behaviors, like making healthy decisions around relationships, eating, productivity. These habits involve long-term commitment, and you can't acquire a habit by trying to convince people through influencing their thoughts. How can we use science to change good habits? Well, let's look at what corporations do, because corporations draw on science to influence their employees. The Uber driving company used science to influence their employees. Being a driver on Uber is difficult. You have to use your own car. You're driving complete strangers. You have to be very aware of the surrounding topography. Well, Uber put a lot of time and resources into training new drivers and also evaluating their cars. Uber lost a lot of money doing that because it didn't work and the drivers quit. Uber then made changes that helped people acquire the habit of being an Uber driver. Uber decided to automate what happened at the end of an Uber ride. So as the driver completed one call or completed one ride, the driver's phone would ping and assign the driver for the next ride. That particular action meant that it moved the Uber driver, it moved them forward through the process of getting used to the pattern of picking up a customer and then getting ready to pick up the next customer. So they start to feel more comfortable with what they're doing, and they will acquire habitual patterns. Don't think that we have escaped this. If you watch television, for example, if you're on Hulu or BritBox, if you're watching episodes in a series, you don't have to make decisions because a little square comes up in the bottom of your screen and it says in 9 seconds, the next show will start. You don't have to press any buttons. You can make people change behavior by making it frictionless. Think about when you're in a restaurant and the wait person says, "Will you have fries with that?" It makes consumption very easy. It makes it frictionless. So corporations and advertising manipulate us. How can we manipulate ourselves to build good habits? To build habits where we do things that are good for us? Well, we do like to repeat actions that are fun and easy. So let's focus on easy. If you don't like going to the gym, you won't go. You need to figure out how to make it fun and easy. There was a study replicated a number of times about the distance between a person and their gym. If it was less than 3.5 miles, people tended to go to the gym. They would go at least 5 times in a month. However, if they had to travel more than 5 miles, they go once a month or less. 5 miles seems to represent friction. It's important not to have a struggle to get there. So to reduce friction, it needs to be easier to get to the gym. It makes that habit more likely to form. So to acquire a habit, you'd like to make it effortless and low friction. And we'll talk about this in a little while. If you want to break a bad habit, you want to create high friction. So let's talk about friction for a few moments. Friction has power. It's very important in terms of habit acquisition. There was a study uh, at local movie theaters with movie patrons. So they had the movie patrons watch a bunch of trailers that were interesting and rate them. And as compensation, they were given popcorn. However, unbeknownst to them, the popcorn was popped and then stored for a week, so it was stale. Now, people who did not have the habit of eating popcorn regularly in a movie theater, so people who regularly ate fresh and not stale popcorn, did not eat the popcorn. However, if the movie patron was someone who already ate movie popcorn regularly, 70% of them ate the stale popcorn. All of the participants in the experiment could tell the experimenters that they did not like the taste of the stale popcorn. However, people with habits, the cues are so strong that they just respond without thinking. They decided to run this experiment again, and they put some friction in it. So left-handed volunteers ate with the right hand, and right-handed volunteers ate with the left hand. So it meant that you had to think a bit when you were eating. It made the eating more thoughtful. If you added just that one behavior and people had to think before they ate, they quit eating the stale popcorn because they were paying attention. When you want to build a habit, you want it to eventually be unconscious and automatic as possible. If you want to interrupt a bad habit, you make it more conscious and more mindful. So let me just repeat that. If you want to create a habit, make it so that you do not have to think about it each time. Make it as automatic as possible. And if you want to break a bad habit, you want to be more aware of it and involve friction. When we look at people who are successful, for example, successful writers, successful athletes, writers who write every day for a certain amount of time, a certain number of pages, or athletes that exercise for a significant amount of time, what these successful people have done is they've made it easier to do these actions. They make the repetition of the actions automatic. If you want to stop a behavior, you want to make it more difficult, and you add friction to behaviors you do not want to engage in. That makes you stop and think. A study was done in Europe about eating fruit. People in Europe tend to eat a lot of fruit, more than Americans. So where the study was done was in a cafeteria, and the fruit was put in a box to the side of the cafeteria line. So people didn't pay attention. However, when the dietitian put the fruit right in the middle of the line, people went for it. She made it easy and obvious how to get the fruit. It's just like the Bullitt Center, the building we started with. The architect put the stairs in the front. Architect made the stairs accessible and their use frictionless. How can we find our own version of building an irresistible staircase? Why do we form bad habits? I've asked myself that question several times. Smoking, gambling, over-shopping. We know that there are long-term negative consequences, but there are short-term rewards. Habits are powerfully shaped by short-term rewards. When we get a reward, our brain responds with dopamine, which makes us happy. And that dopamine helps to form a habit. Now, only certain types of rewards work. And that is a reward which provides an immediate reward. You need a quick dopamine burst. You want to link healthy behaviors with short-term rewards. If you want to learn to eat more vegetables, the point is not to force yourself to eat veggies, but to make them delicious. If you make it yourself, you'll feel proud. If your reward is a bonus at the end of the week, something you give yourself for achieving some health goals several months down the road, it does not help to build a habit. So, healthy diet and exercise, a lot of people try to create this habit, but don't give themselves rewards for a long time. When you want to acquire a habit, you need to build in intrinsic pride. So you can add things to behaviors that might not be intrinsically rewarding at first. So let's say you have a friend who wants to walk on the treadmill, and your friend really enjoys competitive cooking shows. So she sets up her exercise program so that she only watches the competitive cooking shows while she's on the treadmill. Dr. Wood wanted to acquire the habit of becoming a jogger. When her sons were young, she had a full-time job, and her husband had a full-time job. It was very hard to plan exercise. Something always interrupted it. She decided she had to find a time she could do it consistently, which was early in the morning. So she decided, okay, I'm going to run at 6 a.m. She made it as frictionless as possible. For example, she laid her clothes out the night before. Initially, she dreaded starting this behavior, but each time she did it, it got easier. She added rewards, for example, listening to the radio when she ran or listening to an audiobook. It started to become a great way for her to get up. I was thinking about how I worked on acquiring the habit of exercise. I found that I had to put my exercise clothes in the car as I went to work. And when I finished working, I needed to change into my exercise clothes at the office, because if I didn't, I would get in my car and drive home and sit on the sofa. So the first deal that I made with myself was, you just have to get your clothes on after work and before you get in the car. The next deal I made with myself is, unless I was really sick, but if I was feeling cranky and did not want to go to the gym, my deal was, okay, you only have to do it for 10 minutes. And what I found is once I was there and I had done 10 minutes, I could easily do the 30 minutes, which was my goal. So we can use our conscious minds to find ways to make habits frictionless. So again, it's not willpower that forms a habit. It's making the habit as frictionless as possible. For example, it's what professional chefs do. Professional chefs at the Culinary Institute in America, they are taught mise en place. And that means getting everything together before you start cooking, setting up your environment so that you can focus on consistently making great dishes. Beginning chefs want to just jump in and do it. They may forget that they're going to need more flour, or maybe they put in too much sugar. So when you have all your tools and all your ingredients in a row, you don't have to think. You structure the environment ahead of time. And that gives you executive control. It makes it easier. You're not making decisions while you're cooking because you're cued by the items in front of you. It makes it much easier to automate what you're doing. You can add friction to break a bad habit. For example, smoking. Sales of cigarettes continued to increase in the 1970s. People were convinced that smoking was bad, but it didn't change their habit. It wasn't until the environment was modified that people's smoking habits changed. So now there are rules about smoking and rules about how to get cigarettes. We removed cigarette vending machines. There are rules on how to purchase cigarettes. They're behind a counter. There are bans on smoking in public places, so you can no longer easily light up in a restaurant or an airplane. And nicotine is heavily taxed. Telling people that they will get cancer or emphysema had little effect. Now, we like to think we're rational and we respond to such information on cancer and emphysema, but we aren't. We act on autopilot and repeat what we are doing already because it's easier. Here are some healthy ideas to assist you in setting up your meditation practice. The first one is called piggybacking or stacking. So you want to take a behavior that you're already doing and add the habit that you want to acquire to a behavior that you're already doing. So if you want to remember to take your night medications, it might work for you to put them on the nightstand next to where you set your alarm. You're just inserting a new habit into a stream of behavior that you're already performing. A second way to create a habit is through cues. Let's say you're a smoker and you always light it up on the porch. Well, cues can trigger a habit. If you go out to the porch, you're likely to light up a cigarette. So for a period of time, you want to change either going out to the porch or your plan for what you're going to do once you get there. One woman wanted to acquire the habit of writing on a daily basis. So what she did every day was eat breakfast with her husband. What she added to that was, once the dishes were put away, that was her cue to start writing. There was no energy or decision making about writing. Using cues makes the process easier. And the third idea, which is kind of unexpected, is chaos. So let's say our life gets disrupted. we have to have significant repair in our house, or something happens in our job and it really changes our schedule. When life gets disrupted, it's an opportunity for people to try out new things that they didn't have a chance to do the way things were before. We typically think that a stressful time is all bad, but it's not necessarily all bad. It can actually be an opportunity to act more authentically when making a decision. So let's complete this session with a brief meditation. I'm going to start the meditation by sounding a chime. Please come to your sitting meditation posture. Make sure that you have established your foundation, that your weight is equal on the right and the left sides. Your legs should form a right angle with the thighs and the calves, and your heels should be directly under your knees. Keep your knees about a hip's width apart. Once you've established your base, your foundation, and you're letting your weight be supported by the chair or the mat, bring your shoulders over your hips and elongate your spine. Let your shoulders move away from your ears. And then glide your eyes closed or gaze downward. Take 3 full, deep inhalations and exhalations. Breathing in, inhale and fill your lungs completely. And then as you exhale, empty your lungs completely. Do 2 more breaths at your own speed. And as you complete that, just return to your natural breathing rhythm. Focus your mind, bring your attention to your natural breathing rhythm. You're allowing yourself to arrive. Just feel the calmness that comes with this so-called easy attention to our breath. As you continue in your meditation, make sure that your intention is clear. Repeat that intention silently to yourself. See if it fits. See if you've worded it the way you want it. Bring your attention back to the breath. When the mind wanders, which it will do, just gently guide it back to focusing on your breath. In a few moments, I will sound the chime. Let yourself remain aware of the calmness that you're feeling right now and carry it with you through the day and the evening. When you hear the sound of the chime, open your eyes when you're ready. So thank you so much for joining me, and thank you from Studio B. Namaste. See you next time.